You know that the US dollar is the strongest and most popular currency in the world, and it is very popular in a way that has the status of gold all over the world. But why? Why is the US dollar used as the world currency all over the world but not other currencies? To understand this, we need to look at the history of the US dollar. You know that in the past, gold was used as money for a long time. And even when they used paper money, they backed gold. This procedure is known as the gold standard. In fact, the gold-based economy came into being in 1971, less than 50 years ago. The problem with paper money was that when the government faced a financial crisis, it would print money, which would cause inflation. This means that the money you earn with a lot of effort suddenly loses its value or becomes worthless. International trade in paper money was also impossible. For example, if you want to sell your goods to neighboring countries, while they have their own currency, you have to spend a lot of time to understand how much each of your money is worth. In the past, trading was easier because everyone traded in gold. But if both of your currencies are backed by gold, it would be easy to agree on an exchange rate, and the government could not print as much money as it wanted and cause inflation, because every banknote must be backed by gold. And thus the gold standard was formed. With the outbreak of war in 1914, Europe became embroiled in chaos and instability. War costs money, especially when the whole world is involved. During the war you have to supply the soldiers to stand by you and need a weapon to fight it. And they need food to be full. That is why all the countries involved in the war asked the United States for help. Because he was not directly involved in the war. It also had the economic power to do so. In 1920, when the war ended, the US dollar was the only currency backed by gold, which made it one of the most popular currencies in the world. The only competitor to the US dollar was the British pound. But when even Britain was forced to deviate from the gold standard due to the high cost of the war, the US dollar became the only stable currency in the world. Despite the Great Recession, the United States refused to abandon the gold standard. The next step that really made the US dollar the only international currency was World War II. It was a bigger and more devastating war. The Allies had to spend whatever money they had to avoid losing the war, while the United States enjoys the large amount of gold that was sent to it. At the end of the war, the world found itself in an awkward position. Because the United States held 70% of the world's gold, while 30% was distributed among the rest of the world. So the United States proposed that every currency be pegged to the US dollar, while the dollar exchange rate was also tied to gold. This system was named Bretton Woods. If a country wanted to trade with another country, they only used the US dollar, because it was the only currency that could be exchanged for gold. Over the next 2 decades, countries around the world raised large sums of US dollars, and in 1965 France decided to exchange its dollars for gold. They sent a ship full of dollars to the United States, and in return they received a giant ship loaded with gold, and so did the rest of the world. But the United States realized that they had far more dollars than they should. So instead of exchanging dollars for gold, other countries took the dollar out of the gold standard in 1971. Surprisingly, other countries still used the US dollar. Because the United States was still the largest and most stable economy in the world. And so the dollar changed from gold-backed money to fiat money with no intrinsic value.